What's up, everyone? Welcome to Back to the Future, the podcast that takes a trip down Philly sports memory lane and asks the question, what if? I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. You can follow me on Twitter and TikTok at Jimbo_Mont. Be sure to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I have some things in the works, so as long as you're liking and subscribing, you'll be the first to know what's happening and what's going on there. Before we get into today's topic, I just want to kind of go over the current state of Philly sports right now. And obviously, we all know what happened this past weekend, but the other sports. So the Sixers, they're a mess right now. And part of it is injury, part of it is coaching. And I definitely want to continue and look into what's happening. We might be doing some things with more things with the Sixers now that obviously the Phillies are over. But I want to take a look and see what's happening here because I feel it's Doc. But I just want to dive into it and make sure. And I know there's definitely some Doc supporters out there. After the way this year's been playing out, there are fewer and fewer of them, and they're harder to find. So we'll see. You have the Flyers playing out of their minds right now. I think by far playing better than what anybody really thought or gave them the expectations for. Hopefully they can continue to keep down that path and go down that road. They're definitely a young team. They have the new coach, Tortorella, who is bringing a different fire and passion to the team. Hopefully that continues to carry over as we get further into this season. And as I mentioned on our Flyers preview, it comes down to Carter Hart and whether or not he's going to be the legitimate goaltender of the future. But I like what I'm seeing with that. Obviously, we have the Eagles, 8-0 currently. One thing I've been noticing is people have been going on about their quote-unquote soft schedule. And it's kind of rather annoying because, one, you can only play the teams that are in front of you. So it's not the Eagles' fault that the teams that they finished, they were a playoff team last year, don't forget. They're playing a second place schedule. It's not their fault that right now the teams that they've played are just not that good. They're playing who's on the schedule. So it's one of those things where, you got to do what you got to do. They're playing the AFC South, which is not a good division. So I'll give you that. But again, there's nothing you can do about that. They've played the Lions. I think they play the NFC Central as their other division counterpart. But again, there's nothing you can do about that. They beat the Vikings, who are in first place in that division. And all of a sudden now it's, Kirk Cousins doesn't do well on Monday night primetime. Sure, the stats prove it, but everybody loves the Vikings right now. They went out and traded for Hawkinson, and all of a sudden now they're like the second coming. But it doesn't matter if the Eagles beat them because it was Monday night. Jacksonville being a soft team. The Washington, Dallas with their backup quarterback. It's a bunch of garbage because they're actually beating these teams pretty handily. So everybody's like, oh, well, they struggled with the Houston Texans. Did they, though? They won by double digits, and they were coming off a short week, and they won. That's the thing. Look at the Bills. The Bills lost to the Jets. No, and all of a sudden, are people saying, well, the Bills are playing a soft week schedule? No, it's a bunch of garbage. So they're doing what they need to do. I'm sick of hearing the soft schedule. 99% of the time, it's Dallas fans still butthurt over the whole backup quarterback, whatever. They won. You can only do what you got to do. And somebody said, and I can't remember who it was, I feel like it's Denny Green or somebody said that you are what your record says you are. My record says I'm 8-0 right now. I don't care who put in front of me. And they've won in different ways. They've gotten punched in the mouth. They've had to battle in a close game. They had to come back at the end. They jumped out to early leads and held on. So they're doing everything that we want them to do. And all of those same people that are talking about the soft schedule they would be the first ones to jump on your case. Oh, look at the Eagles. They're it's just a bunch of garbage. So miss me with that whole soft schedule thing. I don't want to hear it. Talk to me come January, and if the schedule's soft, then maybe we can see. Or if the Eagles lose 8 in a row like they did in '94, then we can talk. So just enjoy it, Philly. This is New Philly. Enough of the bullshit. And speaking of New Philly, kind of tying into our old Philly roots, the sports teams in this town managed to do something when everything's going well. They managed to do something that has never been done, probably will never ever be done again, and that is lose 2 championships on the same day. Yeah, the Phillies and Union both losing on the same day to lose their respective championships. And I mentioned this on This Day in Philly Sports History. I feel like there has to be a better way to end soccer matches. I know it's something they've been doing for a long time, and I'm just some punk American, but there has to be a better way to lose your championship on penalty kicks, which, and maybe I'm wrong. If you're a soccer person and I'm wrong on this, let me know. But to me, it doesn't necessarily require any skill. You're just basically you're basically like going to a casino and rolling dice and hoping you get craps. Like, I don't know, but there has to be a better way. And then the Phillies, and that's where we're going to start off today. So we're going to do a little World Series recap, look a little bit ahead to next year for the Phillies, and then I want to get into some college basketball preview. We'll keep it light, and we'll get back into our regular routine starting next week. But World Series has been played 118 times. The Phillies have been in there 8 times. So 8 times they played in the World Series. And last week on the pod, I did, or 2 weeks ago, I should say, I did put the wrong stat in there. So I apologize. The Phillies have been in the World Series 8 times out of 118. And that's not a high percentage per se. But, I mean, they've been in the almost 7% of the World Series. But that's 11th most all time. Wait a minute, what? Like, we've talked so much in Philly about them being the most losingest franchise ever, which they are. The first team in any major sport to lose 10,000 games, which they did. But think about that. Only 10 other teams have been to the World Series more times than the Phillies. And this is where I come with this whole New Philly, #New Philly mindset. We got to get over this loser mentality. Like, we're not as bad off, I guess, as we thought. Yeah, we've only won 2 of them, and we could do better on that. But only 10 teams in Major League Baseball history have been to more World Series than us. So I'm sick of the whole loser mentality. And that ties in with the whole moral victories. If I see one more person post on Twitter, oh, well, they made it further than what we expected, and it was a good run, and it was this, it was that. That's a loser mentality. Loser mentality. That's old Philly. We were in the championship of our sport. We were in the World Series. We lost. Doesn't matter that, oh, it was a fun ride, and, oh, they shouldn't have been there. Guess what? They were there. So I don't want to hear this, oh, well, you got to give them some slack. Because you don't know if they're going to be back. They don't know. And if they'd have gotten swept, maybe I could see, okay, great. They were in that series. I still go back to Game 5. You leave 12 men on base. You go 1 for 7 with runners in scoring position, and you lose by one run? And then you're going to talk to me about, oh, well, it was a fun ride. Yes, it was a hell of a lot of fun. October baseball is amazing. It was a fun ride. But this whole moral victory thing, that's a loser mentality. You think they talk about that in Boston? Do you think the Yankees fans are like, well, we made it to the ALCS. We'll take it. No. They're pissed off they didn't win championships, and I'm sick of this loser mentality. So get it together. This is #New Philly. They should have won Game 5. They win Game 5. We're having a whole different conversation right now. We might have even gone to a parade today or getting ready for one tomorrow. And I'm sick of the loser mentality. Get it together, Philly. But yes, it was a fun run. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Both can be true. We had a fun October baseball ride. Playoff baseball in Philly is always a good time. Doesn't mean we can't be pissed off that we didn't win. Doesn't mean we have to stick up for them. No, I think everybody in that clubhouse would probably say the same thing. We had our chances and we didn't take advantage of them. So with that all being said, it was a good season, but it wasn't good enough because they did not win the championship. Now, did they arrive a year sooner than what a lot of people, including myself, thought? Absolutely. I would have been happy with just making that wild card, losing to the Cardinals. I would have been happy with it because that is that natural progression. But once you make it to the World Series, you completely blow expectations out of the water. And again, we got to clean up this loser mentality. We're not losers. And the only reason we have that is because we think we're losers. Stop thinking you're a loser. You're not. This is new Philly. So next year, what are the Phillies going to look like? Well, as I mentioned, this year, I would have expected. This year, I would not have been as surprised as I was this year if it happened next year. I think next year was when they were going to take that next jump. But hey, we're here. Now the expectations are World Series or bust. I mean, I don't think there's any of this, well, let's get to the next round. Let's do this. I think this team right now has to go. It's championship or nothing. And there's where we got to have that winner's mentality. If they make it to the playoffs and lose, it's not a success. Do you look back at the 2011 Phillies? Team won 102 games. Do people say, oh, man, well, they were a lot of fun to watch? No. People say they underachieved and it pisses them off. What about 2010? No, they underachieved and it pisses them off. Do you think in 2009 they're like, oh, man, well, we won last year. We almost got... No, it still pisses me off. So now the expectation is there. You're going to the World Series. And the team actually is not going to look much different than what it is this year. The free agents are, you got Syndergaard, probably will not be back. Kyle Gibson, Hand, Robertson, Zach Eflin declared for free agency today. Likely Gene Segura is going to be a free agent. I do have a feeling they might somehow be able to bring Eflin back or at least try to bring Eflin back. Syndergaard and Gibson, I don't know. I mean, the price has to be right, but I feel like somebody's going to overpay for them. Hand and Robertson, Robertson's old. But we'll see. I mean, nobody on there is really like, oh my goodness, we need to sign them. I think Eflin would be a nice piece in the bullpen unless he wants to go someplace and start. Gene, good ride, good run with him. I just don't know. He's getting up there. Maybe they bring him back as a bench player. Who knows? But I don't see him being back. So what are the big needs then of this team? Obviously, you need to upgrade the pitching. And I think they have some core guys there in place. Obviously, Wheeler, Nola, Ranger Suarez. It's a pretty decent top third or top three in your rotation. I would like to maybe see them pick up somebody else to kind of fill in. They have some young guys down in Reading and AAA. What can I think? Lehigh Valley. So maybe is it Painter comes up? I don't know. But there definitely is going to be some changes on the pitching staff. But you have core guys. You have Alvarado. You have Sir Anthony. So you have some of those pieces in place. Now they have that postseason experience. So now you're looking pretty good. By letting a lot of these players go to free agency, it also frees them up. I think I read somewhere, and I don't think it's counting guys that are going to go to arbitration, but somewhere around $75 million under the cap maybe, or the luxury tax. So there's room for them to improve. Like I said, pitching is one, and they're going to need an infielder. And there's a couple big-name guys out there that they could get. I think they're going to end up, if they let Segura go, they're going to move Stott over to second, and then you need a shortstop. And speaking of Stott, I need him to continue his development. We saw what he could do when he was playing every day. Kyle and I talked about that a couple weeks ago. Once he was able to have in his head and know that, hey, you're going to continue to play, he was good. So I want to see him take the next step up. I need to see Marsh continue to develop. I think the Angels gave up on him maybe a little too early. So the fact that he is solid defensively in center field, I would like to see him improve his offense a little bit, and hopefully working with the Phillies staff. You saw he kind of got it together a little bit in the playoffs, so hopefully he continues to develop. The big key for next year, though, is Castellanos. I think he needs to break out of his slump. We saw glimpses of that at times during the World Series. He actually wasn't swinging at the first pitch every time. Smoltz actually talked about how great of a hitter he was anyway. So hopefully we see him. He's going to be nice and relaxed. I know his family was like, don't back off of him a little bit. But I think everything people were saying about Castellanos was justified. I mean, he didn't play like the guy that they went out and signed him for. So hopefully he continues that progression, and John Smoltz was right. Bryce's elbow definitely is going to be one of the big topics because it's going to determine whether he starts the season with the team or on the disabled list, or injured list now, I guess they call it. But I did see on the news before I came in here to record that it is something he'd like to make a decision with in the next couple days. So we'll see. I definitely need to see Ranger Suarez continue to develop. I think he was very underrated in the playoffs. The fact that we won the Ranger Suarez game a few times during this playoff run, I think is good. And then you need some of these young guys from the minors to kind of step up, whether it's Painter or somebody else. But I think they're going to be in good shape. As I mentioned, next year was the year I had circled as they could be somebody who could compete. Now, the Mets, the Braves, the Marlins are going to take a step up. All these teams are going to get better. So they have to bring their A game, and that's what they need to do. But I think they can. Was this a fun year? Absolutely. Was it an amazing ride through the World Series and the playoffs in the World Series? Absolutely. Am I disappointed and pissed off? Yes. Get rid of the loser mentality, though. They were in that series and had a chance to win it. Sure, the Astros were the better team. Doesn't mean you can't beat the team that's better than you. So let's put the final nail in the 2022 Phillies season. We'll look forward to spring training when the weather gets a little bit warm, even though if you're in the Philly area right now, it's been like late spring. It was like 80 degrees today. Like I had my air conditioner on. That's how it was. But it's going to get cold. So we'll look forward to spring training and all that in a couple months. So hell of a run by the Phils. Very disappointed at the ending, but big things are coming, and this is #NewPhilly. All right, so on to the next thing. Today starts the college basketball season. So actually, as I'm recording this, some of the teams have already started. Temple started playing at 7. Don't know what the score is. I haven't looked yet because I wanted to make sure I gave you all of this unbiased and untarnished. So from the local aspect, I think it could be a kind of a long year for the Big Five, or the Big Six if you want to include Drexel in there. I mean, Nova, I think, is going to be the top of the city. This is the first year AJ after Jay, and they have a solid freshman class coming in. I don't know if it was the new guy, whether it was partly Jay, or what went on there. But they have a forward, Cam Whitmore, who looks like he's going to be a player. He may be their one and done guy this year. I don't know, depending on how the season go. They should be in the mix for the Big East Championship. They should be one of the top teams in the country. I don't know if they're quite on a Final Four level, but they have a couple of those freshmen come in. If Whitmore can play like a lottery pick, who knows? Nova, as much as it pains me to say sometimes, Nova always somehow, when you least expect it, will find a way to make a run. So they'll be in the mix. Next, I think you have Temple. And I think this is the first time now. This is Aaron McKie's team. This is his fourth season. I mean, he had the disaster that was COVID, which none of it was his fault. But they have a good backcourt. You have Khalif Battle, who's coming back healthy from that injury last year, who I love. I think he's going to be a stud. Like, I mean, he already is a stud, but I think he's going to have a very, very big breakout season. Damian Dunn, who is the other guard, who played very well when Battle was out last year. I think he's going to continue to grow, and he showed that he can handle the scoring. So I'm looking forward to that. Big question mark is going to be their inside scoring and the front court. I mean, one of those, they have a lot of big guys on the roster. One of those guys have to step it up. This team this year reminds me a lot of the old school John Chaney teams too, they have the guards. That hopefully they can come through and play some of that defense. Aaron McKie's going to have them taking care of the ball. They have that tough early non-conference schedule, which should get them battle tested, and they could make a run. They're going to be playing some good teams. They're playing in a couple early season tournaments, and they should be in the top half of the American. They very well could make a run in the American tournament. I don't know, depending on where they're seated, but maybe McKie channels his inner John Chaney and gets them playing well come March. And if anybody out there remembers John Chaney's team when it came time for March, he had them tested in November and December, and all of a sudden, boom, there they go. So then you have LaSalle, and this is a transition year for Sal. They have my old pal, Fran Dunphy, as their new coach. So you know they're going to take care of the ball. They're going to be a very good, disciplined team. He's going to need some time to get his guys in. He did keep a couple of the assistants from the previous regime, and that should help with some of the transition from the old and with his style. I think he'll do well. I think LaSalle's a good spot for him. I think Temple, it definitely was not the place for him, but I think he'll do well. They're not going to do well this year, though. I think he's going to need a couple of years. They're going to be at the bottom of the A10. They might finish in last, which might as well stay in the A10. And St. Joe's kind of in a similar position. They're another young team that has a ton of potential moving forward. Billy Lang's in his fourth year, and he's had them gradually improving, but they have a very, very, very young team. I look for Eric Reynolds II to be the guy that breaks out from that team. So you never know, but they'll probably still be in the bottom of the A10, and they're still maybe a year away. So hopefully those two teams with the young guys coming in and Fran Dunphy taking over at LaSalle, you can see some good things out of LaSalle and St. Joe's moving forward in a couple of years, just not this year. Drexel's another very young team. There's a lot of young teams, and I think what happens is these teams, these mid-major teams, attract these solid players who aren't quite top tier. They come to these schools, dominate, and then transfer out to one of the bigger schools. And that's actually what happened to a lot of the guys from Drexel's team last year. Their freshman point guard this year, Justin Moore, who's a local kid from Archbishop Wood. Once he gets settled and gets going, he's going to be the hometown guy. I think he'll do well. They could make a run in the CAA. I don't know if they can win out, but they should at least be fun to watch. And I think that's the takeaway of the 6 city teams this year is they should be a lot of fun to watch. Penn probably is the second best team, depending on how things play out for Temple. They have a veteran team. Jordan Dingle is their number one guy. They're a favorite to win the Ivy. They're the preseason favorite. I think they're going to be the ones that are going to surprise a lot of people, and we'll go from there. But I do think it could be a fun year for the city schools, but it's going to be Nova and then everybody else. So we'll see what happens. And I think Penn, like I said, Penn could surprise some people. Now, on a national level, I think it should be a pretty fun, wide-open year. There's a lot of good players, a lot of good teams. I think realistically, there's 6 teams that have a very good shot to make the Final Four, and none of them should come at any surprise. Kansas, Kentucky, North Carolina, Houston. I like a lot this year. I really do. Obviously, I see them play a lot being in the American. So I kind of follow them more closely than I would some of the other teams. But look out for Houston this year. Kelvin Sampson does a great job down there. So I think this might be the year they finally return to the Final Four. Gonzaga is always up there as a sleeper to win it. Maybe this is the year that they finally do. Baylor's another one that's always there. I think those 6 have a legitimate shot to stake a claim to the Final Four. 4 more sleepers I have: Arkansas, Texas, and Arizona. Again, we're right on that cusp last year. I also think Creighton. Creighton has some guys come in. They transferred in. They have a very, very good team, and I think they're going to make some noise and surprise some people. I personally, I have them winning the Big East over Villanova this year. So we'll see what happens. But I think those 4 teams also have a shot. But for my money, it's 4 of the 6, Kansas, Kentucky, UNC, Houston, Gonzaga, or Baylor. And I know it's not very exciting because it's very chalky, but I think those 6 are kind of head and shoulders above everybody else. Hopefully there is some Cinderella story that comes out here and makes a run and makes it interesting. But we shall see. Hopefully it's Temple. Not gonna lie, I'll do that. So before we wrap up, I know this is Back to the Future, and we always talk about what if. So here's the what if for today. There's a lot of talk about expanding the NCAA tournament, and there nothing's set in stone. But the NCAA has definitely been talking a lot about that. So my question and the what if for today is, what if they expanded the tournament? And personally, I think it's a great idea. I am a huge March Madness fan as it is. I love it. And there's nothing that I can't see any argument against it. And my idea for expansion goes something like this. You expand it to 96 teams. So basically now you're combining the NIT field and the NCAA fields and making one super tournament. It's a way more chance for money for all of these kids, especially with the NIL deals now. Like, there's just so much more time or chances and opportunities for exposure. And one of the arguments against it is it takes away the Cinderella run. I disagree. I think you get a chance for more Cinderellas because you're letting more teams that could get hot. And you're catching me at the right time because of what the Phillies did, just barely getting into the Major League Baseball playoffs and then making a run to the World Series. But I think the more you let those teams in, I don't know why the big guys would even want to expand the field because they run the risk now of having more Cinderellas. Everybody talks about, oh, well, it takes away the what the regular season means, and the regular season doesn't mean anything. Here you go. The top 8 teams get a bye. So if you are, or in each region, I should say. So basically the top 32 teams in the country will get a bye. Basically, that's your top 25. There's your reward for having a good regular season. You're ranked in the top 25, you get a bye. And that still makes the regular season mean something. Actually, kind of makes it mean even more because if you're one of those top 32 teams and you get a bye, that's huge. That's huge. It's going to take away some of those first round upsets, but that's okay because now, as one of the blue bloods, you're fine and you're safe. You might have to get creative with the scheduling somewhat, but I mean, who cares? It's all about the money, right? Think about all the money when it comes to hotels and TV deals, merchandise, sports betting, gambling, whatever. There's going to be so much money to be made for everyone. So maybe you do it an extra week. But I think it makes more sense that first week, start the tournament on a Tuesday. So then you have Tuesday, Wednesday, first round games. Those are the other teams that don't get a bye. Then you go with your normal 64-team tournament starting that Thursday then. So then you go Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So you have three sets of games in that first week. Think about that. You do it with conference tournaments anyway. Conference tournaments are all during the week, during the day. And you may have to get rid of those Sunday conference championship games to give teams enough time to travel. But think about this. Championship Saturday, where you have all the conference championships on a Saturday. Everybody just kind of sits around, relax, recovers, anticipates Selection Sunday now. Gives the selection committee all day on Sunday to kind of come up with the teams. Think about the TV, ESPN could be there, CBS, whoever. There's just so much money to be made. So here it is. What if the NCAA tournament expanded? They got to go 96 teams, basically combining the NIT and the NCAA. More money. Top 8 teams get a bye. More chances for Cinderella. It's going to be awesome, baby. I got a little carried away with my Dickie V there, but you get the point. I think it makes sense. I don't think you double it to 128 because then you're playing basketball, the NCAA tournament for a month. This way, 96 teams, you're basically only adding 2 days. 2 days. And think about all the money. And because this is all about the money right now, the whole landscape of college sports is about the money. There you go. That's how you make the money. Jimbo for president. Let's go. All right, so we kind of wrapped up the Phil season. We said we don't want the loser mentality. We want to look forward to next year. We're allowed to have fun, but we're also allowed to be pissed off that they lost. The Union, I don't know. The soccer, you got to do something with the way they decide matches, especially for the MLS Cup. And I mentioned it this morning, too. It's hard work being a soccer fan, man. You had those guys waving the basketball or the flags and beating the drums, and everybody had their jobs and were on point. It was crazy. And finally, we did City College Basketball Preview. We went national, and I told you what my plan is to expand the NCAA tournament. So when I win the Powerball or they elect me president of the NCAA, 96-team tournament starting on Tuesday. Conference tournaments ends on Saturday. Everybody makes some money. But make sure you follow me on Twitter and TikTok, Jimbo_Mott. If you're not already listening, listen daily to This Day in Philly Sports History. Little quick 2 to 10 minute podcast where I give you important events and things that happen on that particular day in Philly sports history. We'd like to have a little bit of fun with that. It's not as in-depth and detailed as this. Is a little quick thing with that. Follow me on YouTube, subscribe and like that channel for things. I'm thinking about doing a live show every now and then on YouTube where I'm able to take some of your questions in the comments. I'm still working out the details on that. If that's something you'd like to see, shoot me a message, comment on wherever you're watching or listening to this. Let me know what you think, because if people aren't going to be able to do it, let me know. And let me know when a good day is. I'm something I'm thinking about. It's hard to do podcasts with callers and things like that, but just want to try to make the shows more interactive. So let me know if that's something you'd be interested in. Make sure you like and subscribe both podcasts because it does help out the algorithm. Still don't know what it means, but one day we'll figure it out. Go have yourselves a week. We'll get back to our normal Back to the Futures next week. I think I have something with the Eagles cooking up for next week, so be on the lookout for that. Have a great week, everyone, and until next time, I will see you when I see you.